I'm so happy to have you here. This is probably um, the chakra that has affected me the most throughout life. The fifth chakra, the throat chakra, is one that I always tested poorly on every time I went to the chiropractor for my scoliosis. And so he was one of these very enlightened chiropractors. He had a big kit of all the essences, and he had an essence for every single chakra. I tested great on everyone except the throat. And so, because bear in mind, I started with him 30 years ago, and
Wow.
30 years ago is just about the time that I stepped into A Course in Miracles. And then, from that, my role unfolded. But Spirit had been trying to reach me by waking me up in the middle of the night,
Hmm.
practically every night, to type messages about God. I was, having all these messages come in. But anyway, let's start at the beginning. What I'm going to cover in this session is first the colors, then the controls. And by controls, I mean the qualities and the characteristics of the fifth chakra, then the connection to the third, then the organs that are affected, then the physical problems related to those organs. And interestingly enough, I was able to uh, tap into a lovely uh, list of suggestions for natural improvement. In other words, you don't need to turn to other people. You don't need to turn to doctors. You don't need to turn to pills. This is what you can do for yourself. And then finally, healing the fifth chakra through divine expression. So let's start with the colors. Contrary to what I experienced with the heart chakra, when I have had clients and I've looked at the heart chakra, I've gotten multiple images. With the fifth chakra, very few images, mostly color, but one image that was extremely prominent that showed up through intermittently from client to client that had fifth chakra issues. Bands, black, white, black, blue, black, light, black, dark. It was as if there was a band around the throat, so it wasn't completely like holding them back, but it was partially holding them back. And most of the time, what was happening was that each person was in some form of expression of the divine, giving expression to the divine, but not fully. I'm one of them. I I've come. I keep thinking, what have I accomplished? In some cases, yes. I think I've accomplished a lot. Uh, Part of my soul contract was to bring forth that book, Own Your Power. I brought it forth, but that's not enough. Spirit wants more, and I know exactly what to do to get them more. It takes a lot of work, and as I keep thinking, I'm tired. Well, one of the things I'm tired is because I'm not doing the work. I'm not responding to Spirit's call to answer this. So I just have to overcome any kind of resistance. And this is one of the reasons why I love presenting these, all of the characteristics of the chakras, the either what has come out of a book or what has come from my own experience. So anytime you look at the throat chakra, you might see any color from the palest blue to the darkest midnight blue. So the palest, almost like you look up at the sky and you see cloud cover over the blue sky. That could be what you see. If you see aquamarine in it, the color of the Caribbean waters, then know that you are seeing partially into the eighth chakra, which is the thymus, and it exists above your head. But the for the most part, all of the throat chakra is going to be in various forms of blue. If it's black, if it is nothing but black, then know that that person, and you're going to have to be brutally honest with themselves, and it could be yourself. If you put your hands on your throat and in your mind's eye, all you see is that midnight blue rather than any any lightness to it, you are not conforming or not aligning with the divine expression that you had agreed to bring forth as part of your incarnation. Fortunately, I love the people that I surround myself with. I stand in awe and admiration of them, but I also know that when it comes time to do manifest, become part of more aligned with your soul contract, nothing is impossible for you. Absolutely nothing. If this is what you came here to do, is it going to take work? Yes, absolutely. But is it impossible for you to achieve it? No, not at all. And that's the hump you have to get over. One of the things that Wanda and I knew immediately is that Rays of Healing attracted teachers. So it was like we recognize that we teach the teachers. So every single person that comes through our, passes through and becomes a part of Rays of Healing, whether you go all the way to becoming a formal minister or not, if you're still attracted to the message, you are meant to teach. That's the long and short of it. So this is hopefully is going to give you a little bit of an impetus, a little bit of a push for that, towards that. All right. What qualities, what characteristics are part of the fifth chakra? I keep saying, I will occasionally say third because it's closely aligned to the third chakra. It's closely aligned with personal will. This is divine will. Third chakra is personal will. So occasionally that third chakra comes out instead of fifth. Okay, first quality that is critical for you, speaking your truth, but speaking your divine truth, speaking and allowing the expression of what you know is right for you to be shared with others. I'm not saying proselytize. I'm not saying try to convince your family members. I have members in my family that they range anywhere from fundamentalists to atheists to non-believers. So, but if you find an opening to be able to share your this with, use it. And don't be afraid to share what you know. Use it. So that's what I mean when I say speak your truth. Align with divine truth. Align with what you know is where humanity is moving. Because all these major psychics that are out there are predicting enormous movement for us in the next couple years. Uh, I think it's Bashar, the one that Daryl Anka channels, big bombastic type of voice, who basically has said end of 26, beginning of 27 is when the space brothers and sisters will finally be introduced to the planet, and they, and through all the government leaders, not just a select few. So we'll see. We'll see. Because I also, at the beginning of this year, I also, because the internet is always feeding me, new information. So I also read that, oh, April is going to have a major shift. Well, it may have had a major shift cosmically, but still the consciousness of most people is stuck. So we're not to the point where we are aligning yet with the full truth of how important our planet is in the cosmic scheme of things. We are one of, in the Milky Way galaxy, we are one of 4 planets that is called a living library. And the reason it's called a living library is that every single animal, insect, reptile, bird, etc., that exists, and that includes all the aquatic animals on a different planet, is here. So there might be an entire planetary system with nothing but reptiles. There might be another planetary system with nothing but elephants, nothing but bears. But we have an example of them. We're a living library, and under no circumstance, I've had this from multiple sources, will God allow man, the human, to destroy this planet, just like the asteroid belt was at one time a planet and was destroyed because of the warlike mentality of the creatures that lived on it. So God will not allow that because we have too much at stake. Also, Mother Earth, the consciousness of Mother Earth. Every time there is a bomb dropped on her, and look at the different wars that are raging now, those bombs are dropped on her skin. So just think of how infected you would feel if you had multiple lesions, multiple things erupt over various places of your body. I know what it took out of me when I had viral bronchitis. Just that alone wiped me out to the point where it wasn't as bad as pneumonia, the pneumonia that I experienced a couple Decembers ago, but it still was very debilitating. It took my energy down, 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 down. Okay, so let's just continue. Conforming with creativity, understanding that each one of us is a little piece of God who creates the same way that she, he, it does through thought. And so many people are stuck in this inability to manifest what they want. But my guidance on that has been that they vacillate. They vacillate from believing they can to believing they can't, believing they can, believing they can't. And as a result, they rock back and forth and get nowhere with what they want to create. So conforming to the creativity, the creative ideas that come through you are really, really important. But not only seeing what comes through you, but then when you find something that really makes your heart sing, asking for the steps to be given to you as to how to complete that. Um, Everything worth having takes time. And so many of the projects that people start, they might work on it, work on it, work on it, work on it, and then quit. And for all they know, they might have quit when 95% of that project was completed. So it didn't come to fruition. Okay. How you relate to authority is a fifth chakra issue. Relating to authority, there's always going to be somebody that's over you, typically. First, your parents, then your teachers, then your bosses, unless you became an entrepreneur. You always had a boss. Most women have found themselves in employment. Probably every woman that was born in after 1970, very few women, I think, felt that, oh, they wanted to just do nothing but stay home and raise a family. That's an admirable goal, but even if they wanted to do that, many of them became homeschoolers and they taught their children then instead of wanting them to go to the public school. I live in South Run. South Run is the feeder school, the feeder high school for South Run is Lake Braddock. There was, at the time my children graduated, which was over 20 years ago, I would say 95% of the students went to South Braddock. I'm sorry, to Lake Braddock. When I looked at the pamphlet that is given us once a month by the Homeowners Association, I think there were 2 or 3 of the 20 odd graduates. I think there were like 25 graduates. 2 or 3 graduated from Lake Braddock. The rest were in different schools. And that just absolutely floored me. But I recognized that, okay, things change. Obviously, something happened to Lake Braddock over the years to make people feel they wanted to keep their children away from that. Relating to authority can lead you into problems if you take offense with what authority figures say to you. If you always feel you have a better way, if you feel that they have nothing of value to give you, to share with you, you might have a better way, but unless you own the company, you're always going to have clamps put on you as to how you can exercise that better way. So just know that your ability to relate to authority, if you're really having trouble with it, ask to be given grace. and asked to be given the ability to understand something that you're not getting, because that something is probably all entrenched in your ego mind. Uh, because I've studied A Course in Miracles since 1995, I have a pretty good grasp of how the ego grips us and makes us feel like we're wrong, we're right, everybody else is wrong, and it just doesn't, it just doesn't work if you're in a normal uh, environment with a normal chain of command. If you seek to be a leader, and this is absolutely fabulous, if you seek to do nothing but lead an organization, find one that conforms to your skill level or your interests. It could be battered children, it could be battered housewives, it could be battered women, it could be teaching the handicapped how to swim. Whatever it is, you might be able to find a group that you can lead and guide and be the head of, to fulfill that need to be the leader. This is really very, very important, because so many people develop skill sets and then do nothing with them. And that's so sad. It's so tragic for the rest of humanity, because we all have something to offer. We all, uh, and it's interesting. I'll just share this with you. I don't think I've ever shared it with anybody, but I, when I recognized, or how I recognized that I love to speak, was when my first husband, who, and I'm going back over 50 odd years, couldn't, did not hold on to a job, absolutely refused to believe that anybody could teach him anything. Literally, usually his modus operandi was to work for 3 months, then quit, and then look for something else. He once gave me a roll of dimes. This is, of course, when payphones were 10 cents, and a payphone existed, because, of course, we didn't have cell phones. And he said, find a job anywhere in the world and I will follow you. And of course, that scared me to death. I thought, what do you mean, find a job anywhere in the world? But yet that was his directive to me. That's what he told me to do. So I looked at that and I thought, well, okay, first of all, what do I love to do? And then I came to the conclusion, I love to talk. And interestingly enough, my first job as an adult when I graduated from college was to be a first grade teacher. I didn't have a teaching degree. It just so happened that I was putting him through college, and we moved to South Fallsburg, where the community college was, Sullivan County Community College, that had the hotel and management program that he wanted to, that he got into, that he wanted to follow. And I went and applied for a bank teller's position. Um, and the bank teller looked at me, looked at my application, looked at me, looked at my application, and finally, within a minute, said, do you think you could teach first grade? And summoning all the courage I could in the world, I said, of course, not knowing what the heck I was agreeing to, not having a clear idea of what it meant to teach first grade. His best friend was the supervising principal of both a high school and an elementary school that was called Tri-County. um, I guess, elementary and high school. And he was the supervising principal. And school was going to open in 1 week, and they needed a first grade teacher. My saving grace, and I absolutely felt so blessed to receive this, was that the teacher that retired from the position in order to take care of an ailing husband gave left me her lesson plans. I had a blueprint of how to teach first grade. So I looked at that, and it was divided into 15-minute segments or 20-minute segments. And literally, by following that, making my own lesson plans, but following that format, I was able to do what it was that was expected of me. And uh, I'm not going to go into it. Second year, my husband accepted a position abroad, so I didn't go on. Uh, no, I guess that was the third year. The second year, I stayed employed the first year, and second year for the third year, he accepted a position abroad that was an international school in Ireland. He quit that after 3 weeks and said they can't teach me anything. They don't know anything. So the sad thing was that he didn't know if the school would accept him back. The school did accept him back, but one of the conditions of hiring me back uh, was that I would stay the full year, that I would not leave at the six, at the semester break. And I know, as hard as he tried to get me, he agreed to that, but then he tried to get me to break that promise, and I refused to break that promise because I felt I gave my word that I would stay until the end of the school year. And so it was a very difficult year. I had a very difficult group of students, but nonetheless, got through it and kept my word. If you find that you have managerial skills, leadership skills, like I said, find a group. If it's not a paid group, find a group that is there for you, that is volunteer work. Um, there was a wonderful article in the Washington Post in the Metro section recently, how the home that Sergeant Shriver and Eunice Shriver lived in had uh, the people who lived in it currently uncovered the fact that Eunice Shriver, prior to the start of the Peace Corps, opened the house up to Special Olympics because she had all kinds of children in her backyard. There was something like, I guess, 200 acres with the home originally. And even though they were left with a smaller acreage, they still had a huge lawn and a large pool. And that was, she called it her summer camp. And but then that became the unofficial start to the Special Olympics. And look where that has gone. So again, you just take an evaluation of what you are interested in, what you love, what feels right for you, and then follow that. Um, Relating to the talents of the voice is singing too. Interestingly enough, I just watched the a, the movie called Judy, which was about Judy Garland. And this was the period shortly before she died. Uh, how she had fallen in stature just because of the incidents, I guess that's the kindest word I can think of, that she pulled when the arguments, uh, she apparently was addicted to both drugs and pills. And that started at a very, very early age because they wanted her to be a certain weight. And that weight was kept in control. Her weight was kept in control basically with pills. They didn't want her to eat what a normal teenager would eat. And so, and then they gave her pills to sleep. So anyway, uh, so so that type of addiction followed her, and that made her irascible at times and very difficult to deal with and difficult to be around. But for the most part, her voice still was there. And her last big engagement was a tour in London. And so I'm not exactly sure how I didn't have a chance to Google it before I started this lecture. So I don't know how many uh, weeks she actually was on the tour, but the people in London absolutely loved her until, again, some of her shenanigans made it impossible for them to keep hiring her, to keep her employed. And the there's a poem by Robert Frost that kind of trails the fall of the high and the mighty. And I never can remember the title, but I remember one of the words was called Ashabag. And the last two lines were, too many fall from great and good for you to doubt the likelihood. So I, I recommend that you get that poem because you might feel that only important people start projects that are worth following, like Sergeant Shriver in the Peace Corps or the Special Olympics. And that's not true. There's many, many, many gifted people that are just walking the streets, that are just ordinary people, but they have a bright idea and they're willing to run with it. So please, don't short change yourself is what I'm trying to say. Okay. Let's see what else. Okay. So those were the basic characteristics. The physical body, the physical organs that are affected by the fifth chakra. First and foremost, this is the throat. So it's the thyroid, the trachea, the neck, the vertebrae, and interestingly enough, because the vertebrae right at the top of the neck are affected, if somebody has scoliosis that turns their neck sideways, which is what I have, that's also a contributing factor. And it might change the shape of your shoulders. It might change the shape of your spine, and especially sideways. You might look like you're hunched over when you're not. Because I know myself. When I see myself from the side, I literally look like I'm bending forward, and I'm not. I'm straight, but yet that's affected. So the mouth, the teeth, the gums, the esophagus, the parathyroid, the hypothalamus, and I guess that's it for the last one, the hypothalamus. I wanted to, I know that I think I was in my 30s, could have been in my early 40s, but I think I was in my 30s when I was told by a dentist that I had to, that my gums looked inflamed. And so I went to a periodontist and he said, yes, you have to have a complete periodontal treatment. And I can remember at that time that cost roughly $2,000, which was a big chunk, but nevertheless, his attitude was, if you don't get this done now, when you still have, when your gums are still healthy enough to be able to revive, you will be in the subject to the possibility of losing all your teeth. Well, that didn't sound very hopeful for me. So I went through the complete periodontal treatment with the teeth also. As he was working with me, then he basically said to me, you need braces. And I looked at him. I had never considered braces, but I did something. I took my mouth and I shoved it over to one side and saw that it curved up. Then I shoved it over to the other side and saw that it curved down. So I did this enough. And when I went to the orthodontist, he said, oh my God, yes, you need braces. After 3 years, he said, we're not getting the correction that I thought we would be. We're not at the place that I thought we would be at after 3 years. He wanted to take the braces off and have my jaw cracked and to realign the jaw. Fortunately, my mother's sisters came into town, listened to that story, and both of them just descended on me like two harpies and said, don't you dare do that. Don't you dare let them crack your jaw. They knew somebody, they came from Chicago, they knew somebody that they were acquainted with that had that done, and the ultimate outcome was worse than had he had nothing done at all. So my net result was I was in braces for over 5 years. When I moved to South Run, I was actually in braces. And when I had them off 2.5 years later, they actually threw me a brace removal party. And I said, a party for taking your braces off? And my next door neighbor, who was always filled with life and fun and all kinds of things, said, yeah, a party. Well, they gave me things like Granny Smith apples, which I obviously could never chew. The presents were a bag of toffee, which obviously I could never chew, popcorn, which I could never chew while I had braces. So everything, and the card, that the main card that was given to me was Mona Lisa with her smile, with braces on her, in her smile. So needless to say, I did keep that card. But it is amazing how many things can go wrong around this area, around the fifth chakra. So this last one, or that I wanted to talk about, the hypothalamus, it says it's a small gland, it's pea-sized, and it's at the back of it aligns with the endocrine system, and it regulates your blood and calcium levels. And it can control your fatigue. That if you have any type of extra amount of fatigue that you're struggling with, then have that hypothalamus checked. It's also can be involved in just general muscle weakness. So, or tingling in your extremities, like if you have tingling in your fingers or tingling in your toes, or possibly numbness. Sometimes that's related to diabetes, but not always, so it could be related to the hypothalamus. But it's a system that links your endocrine system, which are your main hormones, and your nervous system. So it keeps your body balanced. It keeps your body in a state of homeostasis. And the rest of what I'm going to tell you is important because I've seen the same advice repeated over and over and over for other ailments, other places, other things that go wrong with the body. But they said, the article that I was reading on the internet said to reset it naturally. This is, you're not turning to drugs, you're not turning to surgery, you're just resetting the hypothalamus naturally. Your first order of defense is your diet. And how you do that with your diet? Natural foods, unprocessed foods. But more importantly, or I should say equally as important, not more importantly, equally as important, is that you limit your sugars and you limit your fats. I had to laugh because one of the foods that we eat once a year is corned beef. And if you've ever boiled corned beef, you know how fatty it is. So my husband and I, over the years, have figured out a way to eliminate all the fat in the corned beef, because that is, at St. Patrick's Day, we have corned beef and cabbage for as long as it lasts for us. We just do a giant pot of it with the cabbage, with the potatoes, and the corned beef. But we boil it, and then he takes it out after it's boiled, skims off the fat, puts a layer of Dijon and Wegmans mustard on it, and then bakes it for another hour. So by the time it gets out of the oven, it is as lean as any piece of it. It looks like round steak. It's so lean. And then, of course, we slice it very thinly and have an unbelievable number of meals. But we always buy 2 of the packages because we like it so much, and we only have it once a year. It's our yearly treat for St. Patrick's Day. So this is, it doesn't matter. You could be frying pork chops. Pork chops usually have a rim of fat around them. Eat the pork, leave the fat. So that to help you with that. Processed foods. I know that when we don't make our own soup, I will usually take Progresso soups because for whatever reason, I feel that they probably have less of the ingredients that I find offensive in processed foods. Nevertheless, still a processed food. So whenever you can, if you're a soup fanatic, make your own soup. Every time you have a chicken, if you bring home a chicken from Costco, which we do a couple times a year, skin it, boil it, let it render down, and use the broth as your basis. If not, if you're a vegetarian, which many, many people are that are on the spiritual path, use broth that is vegetable broth. And it's interesting because if you stop to think, if you're using vegetable broth, you can think of the fact that soup is free because you can save every cutting from every vegetable that you use, including all the cuttings from the salads, even if they have just run a lot of water in them. If they have sand in them, get the sand out. But you can make your own broth very, very simply by rendering it down. I also was at a spice store called Penzies in Falls Church, and I found a thing of French spice. Elizabeth, help me out with this. It has a special name, and I'm sure you know it. It begins with a P.
I don't know, but spices or herbs?
Well, it's a combination of herbs.
Because we have the herbe de Provence.
Okay, that's it.
That is a
That's it.
combination of herbs that goes with everything.
Yes,
Meat,
that's it.
fish, everything.
Right. The herbs
Of
de
Provence.
Provence.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I have downstairs. That's what I found at Penzi, and I was absolutely thrilled. You smell it, and it smells great.
Yes.
You know, it's
Get it
just
on Amazon once a year during the holiday season. Trader Joe's carries it.
excellent.
It works
Excellent.
with everything. It's wonderful.
It's that's just it. You can put it on anything and it will make it taste fabulous. So I just so recommend that you use it. And I didn't know it was available at Trader Joe's, but I kind of figured it should be,
But
you know.
just seasonally, because I was there the other week and asked, where are the herbes de Provence? And they told me it's only during the holiday season.
Okay,
So,
holidays meaning Christmas,
yes,
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, Christmas.
Okay,
But
okay,
so if not, I get it on Amazon, or there's some specialty shops that sell it too here and there.
exactly.
But we
Exactly.
can't cook without it in our house.
Well, that's, you know, once you find something like that, you realize what a gift this is, you know. And so, and in terms of making everything taste good, it makes everything taste splendid. So I feel, I don't care what it is, fish, chicken, meat, and I generally try to stay away from beef. Beef that I don't, for some reason, and beef with blood in it, forget it. That tasted like sawdust in as I was trying to get it down. So that just was that I've eliminated completely. But the other recommendations were vitamin C and vitamin B12. And vitamin C, and of course, they do recommend organic, but I know at times I just go to Costco and I pick up a large container of vitamin C. That I used to feel I needed that only in winter time. I've long given that up. I take vitamin C and B12 year round now, but those are the only two supplements that I take on top of what has been prescribed to me uh, for medication, which is two additional things. So that's part of diet, and the foods that they recommended, big fleshy type of fish like salmon, but cod also, if fresh cod has a phenomenal flavor. So I would recommend that you try that. If you can get it, whitefish. That's a Great Lakes fish. And if you go, I know that's kind of hard to find, but if you can, you know, the fish that have a lot of substance to them, leafy greens, all the veggies, all are important. I know some people will say, I hate broccoli. This members of my own family. Or I hate Brussels sprouts. Well, I found two recipes, a recipe for Brussels sprouts that's marinated that even the haters seem to love. With broccoli, I tend to only steam it for 4 minutes, so it has a little bit of a crunch to it. And most people have come to like that. But they also recommended walnuts, flax, and chia seeds, and berries, especially blueberries. Blue, color of the throat chakra. So, and the last food that they recommended was avocados. And some people will say, oh, avocados are so full of oil. Well, yeah, eat half of an avocado every day, or as long as just don't get tired of the taste. So just know that the avocado that these foods, just regular good nutritious foods. I know when I bring home enough root vegetables, like the carrots we always have, potatoes we always have, but I have to add turnip, I have to add parsnips, I might have to add a sweet potato, and then maybe a rutabaga, something else and then I have to have the time to chop it up. But roasting vegetables is is a way of preserving the vitamins in them, because nothing is going down the drain. That's why when I steam broccoli, I only have an inch of water in a pan that is at least 6 inches tall, and the rest is cooked just by steam. So um, chia seeds, Costco, huge bag. Flax, same thing. So okay, next thing were mental and emotional issues. I already mentioned that Dr. Sievers would always check me. And the only thing I tested weak for was the throat chakra. But that was long before. At that point, I was still looking for my path, looking for what I'm supposed to do with the information that I was assimilating and I loved. I loved anything spiritual. I just soaked it up like a sponge. And so, fortunately, uh, I would go from one lecture to another, to a third, to a fourth, to a fifth, to a sixth, and these were always, people that had national recognition. They came in from out of town. The lectures were sometimes quite expensive, sometimes not. But anyway, I wanted a local teacher, and that's when I found Wanda. And so I felt very, very fortunate that Wanda, and then of course in the process of teaching us, she also started this church, which has been a mainstay in my life. And but the mental and emotional issues are the things that come to you where you have a choice. And that choice is also has two facets with it. One will give you strength, might weaken you. One might come from your personal will that's more invested in ego. One might come from your divine will. So just recognize that if a certain group of friends is not meant to stay in your life, don't worry about the fact that they're not meant to stay in your life. One of the gals, I heard this recently, but I've heard it years ago too. She said, one of the reasons that I don't pursue my spiritual path is because I'm afraid I'll lose all my friends. And the first thing I said was, you will. You will lose all of those who are not vibrationally aligned with you. You will lose them, but that doesn't matter. it if they're meant to stay in your life, they will. If they're not meant to stay in your life, new people will come into your life that are more important to you. Um, Interestingly enough, and this is something that uh, I was a little surprised when I saw or when I heard that following one's dream is a fifth chakra issue. You may have been given a mandate to do something when you were a child. Again, recently, I was listening to a group of brothers and sisters, I think one brother, two sisters, that all played various instruments, piano, violin, viola, cello, from the time they were 4 years old. And they were playing internationally now. And occasionally they got together. But they knew as souls exactly who to choose in terms of the parents that would support what they wanted to do. All three children became, were in the process of becoming internationally known. And their parents supported their journey, paid for all the lessons, were obviously wealthy enough to buy the instruments. Um, I think it's, I'm not sure what the cost is. I think it's $33 million. It could be 300 million. But the Stradivarius, the violin is that was originally made by Stradivarius, who is the most expensive instrument in the world. Joshua Bell owns one and will occasionally use it when he plays. And I can remember when he ended up playing in the subway in New York City, and just, early morning rush hour, just to see if people would stop to listen. No one stopped. No, he didn't feel he made an impact at all. And yet here he was on this magnificent instrument, um, playing, and anyone who has heard Joshua Bell knows how terrific he is. So anyway, following one's dream, and it doesn't matter how that dream was given to you or how old you were when that dream came to you. You absolutely have to pursue it. And okay, I'm going to cover that a little bit later, but the use your own personal power to create. Use your own ability to know that if God led you to it, God will lead you through it. And you will be given the right information, the right media, the right things to create. This thing was now this next characteristic, or mental and emotional issue, surprised me. Addictions are a second chakra issue, but they're also a fifth chakra issue. So, and I asked, why? Why is it a fifth chakra issue? And what I heard from my guides is that you are abdicating your own personal power. You are not pursuing things according to what you want. You want it to happen, but you don't want to invest the energy into it. So I kind of thought, well, that's an interesting way to put it, but I'll I know the addiction of alcohol runs in my family, as it does in a lot of Polish families. I was fortunate that my father or mother were not addicts, because recently I've had a couple clients whose parents were, and that they've had very, very difficult lives as a result, and have a lot of trauma, still to overcome and everything. But this next characteristic is truly, absolutely embed this in your mind. All judgment and all criticism come from the fifth chakra. So if somebody is ladling criticism or judgment on you, don't accept that as yours. Don't feel that you have to take that criticism as anything that belongs to you, because you don't. Your own personal power has to overcome the effects of judgment and criticism that is levied on you. And this is stronger. This can become stronger with the next characteristic: faith and knowledge. Faith is just accepting on God's will for what it is. And when I stop to think about faith, I always bring to mind Einstein's words. If you believe in miracles, no proof is necessary. If you don't believe in miracles, no proof is possible. So then I recognize that what I might take on faith for a person who doesn't believe in miracles, don't waste your breath. Don't even try to discuss what it is that's important to you, because they're not going to get it. Knowledge, by the same token, is a direct download from God. You know that you know, you know that you know that you know, but you don't know how you know. You just know that you know. So just take knowledge and thank God for being given that as a download. And the last characteristic or mental and emotional issue was the ability to make decisions. Far different than making a decision, changing your mind. Making a decision, changing your mind. Vacillating back and forth and back and forth. Making a decision and saying, this is what I'm going to do. This is why I'm going to do it. And now, what are the steps to accomplish it? That is what is critical for you. So, and again, I liked this list. Like I said, the one thing that did surprise me was that addictions were related to the fifth chakra. I absolutely did not know that. But anyway, see if there's anything else. Oh, yeah, there is. I skipped down to mental and emotional issues, but I forgot to cover, I covered food as diet, as resetting yourself into homeostasis naturally, but I forgot to cover stress and having stress eliminated in your life. And stress comes from managing the word I'm getting is digs that are thrown at you. And a lot of times this can be relieved by just the manner that you use your muscles. Those of you who have done yoga know this. the 12 major muscle groups that are in your body are exercised every single time you do the sun salutation. Sun salutation, I think, has about 6 parts to it. And so if you don't know what the sun salutation is, Google it. I'm sure that all of that will show up for you. But your major muscle groups will be exercised in that. There are parts of the sun salutation a little bit harder than the others, but not that terribly difficult. But there is something new out there that I've not seen before. Well, I've seen it the last couple of years, but I hadn't seen it before a couple of years ago. It's called aging backwards. And I can't remember the name of the gal who started it, but I know she's, I think, 78, and she looks terrific. And it's just flow. It's just using your body to flow in and just constantly moving and doing a half hour. And again, maybe you start with 10 minutes of very gentle exercises. So, but regular exercises. And even I know, even when I do nothing but walk to Berkeley, because I live right next door to Berkeley, I will exaggerate the movement of my limbs. I will exaggerate the movement of my arms just to get a little bit more movement into them. So regular exercise and is also part of stress management. Okay? All right. Physical dysfunctions. Physical dysfunctions can become, and I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time, just kind of go list them. Raspy throat can be a physical dysfunction, or chronic sore throat. And it's interesting. I never had a chronic sore throat, but I'd have a sore throat once a year. So maybe somebody would consider that chronic until I started doing God's work. And then I typically just don't get sore throats. Mouth ulcers, if you've ever had them, they can be extremely painful. Not fun. It's the skin is white. It could start as a little pinprick and then just gradually get about the size of a pinhead, maybe a little bigger, but hurts, just hurts. Gum difficulties, periodontal disease, I covered that. So that's, watch out for that. And if your dentist tells you you have periodontal disease, I absolutely encourage you to go and have it checked out. Don't ignore it, because again, something like that never gets better. It only gets worse. This next one has a very fancy name. It's called tempora mandibular. And what it is clicking of the jaws. And it's interesting because some people say their jaws will click when they talk. Some people will say their jaws will click when they eat, but it's clicking of the jaws. And sometimes it causes pain, sometimes it doesn't. But the next one is scoliosis. And again, that surprised me, but I could see that if the upper vertebrae are attached to the throat chakra, scoliosis can extend into the neck. It does in my case. I have an S-shaped spine. So it curves and it goes sideways at the top. The irony to my scoliosis is it doesn't hurt. There are some people who have just a tiny bit of scoliosis that gives them tremendous pain. So I feel very, very fortunate that way. But I also go to massage once a month. I also go to acupuncture once a month. And I consider that my maintenance and just part of self-care for myself. Laryngitis. Again, this isn't something that I've had in the past 30 years, but before I started on my spiritual path, before I became willing to do what I knew in my heart that I had to do, I would have laryngitis once a year, where I would try to talk and nothing came out. Squeaks came out. And sometimes it hurt, sometimes it didn't. But anyway, laryngitis, swollen glands, that's a given. That's in the same area. And interestingly enough, all thyroid problems, whether it's no matter what it is, the thyroid, the parathyroid, the hypothalamus, it's all in this area. Everything related to the thyroid is going to be a fifth chakra issue. Esophagus, and I can remember my first run-in with the esophagus was when I was in 6th grade, because we're Polish. Polish sausage was on the menu at least once a month. I apparently didn't swallow completely a piece of grizzle that stayed somewhere within my esophagus for 6 months. And when it dislodged, it was like, oh my God, does that feel better? Because I would feel it riding up and down, not much, maybe a half an inch, but I would feel it every time I swallowed, which is a lot of times. So anyway, getting pills stuck in your esophagus can also be an issue, a fifth chakra issue. So make sure that if you have to take pills, that you also have a large glass of water, and that you take those pills and that water comes down and make sure it flushes down everything. Okay, the last section of the fifth chakra is healing the fifth chakra through divine expression. Part of this I've already covered, and that's the speaking part. If you feel called to speak, take every effort to share your words, because your words are vital. You don't know who it is that those words are going to reach, and you don't know why you feel pushed to say something. And it could be to the person who's standing next to you in the grocery line. You just never know. But if you are being drawn to say something, and I know I will always try to say something positive, something upbeat, maybe something to make somebody laugh, try to lighten their day. And if it's a total stranger, and then just see what happens. Sometimes it starts a conversation, sometimes it's a dud. So anyway, but also, right, I know before blogging was a big deal, 20 years ago, everybody was pushing to make a blog. Now the new thing seems to be podcasts. I tried a blog. I did it for about 14 years. Another long story as to why I quit. But as a result of my quitting, I then went searching for a new outlet. And that's when I found Sacred Circle and decided that I would go to work at Sacred Circle. And so worked at Sacred Circle for 14 years. So I had 14 years of blogging, 14 years at Sacred Circle. Interesting, that's the same number of years at each one. And Sacred Circle closed last June, a year ago. So I know I'm in a new transition phase. I know what it is, but still haven't done anything about it. But and I know that that's where that viral bronchitis came in to kind of like give me that push for it. Okay, but so blogging and podcasts. If you are called to write, you again find an outlet for yourself where your writing can reach a number of people. Because I know when I was blogging, I would at the end of the week, I don't think I did it daily. I think I did it weekly. I would take down the countries. I just list the countries of the people that I was reaching. And I realized I was reaching people around the world so that they were absolutely, my words were important to them. And the first part of my blog was called Angel Journal. And then, first one was Soul Search. That was my first one. Then it became the Angel Journal. And from the Angel Journal, I started to write everything that became my, the book, Own Your Power. So you may feel like your words don't have enough depth. Don't criticize yourself. Again, know that if God leads you to it, God will lead you through it. Be the very best version of who you are. And don't be afraid to invest money into items that may feel like, oh, they're out of reach because they're too expensive. But don't invest any money if you're not going to follow through. That's an absolute waste of your time, your effort, your money. So absolutely, writing, I can't stress it enough. Your words could possibly reach unborn generations. They could reach people hundreds of years in the future. You don't know. I mean, Jane Austen, if I remember correctly, she was paid something like 10 pounds for Pride and Prejudice. She was given just a one-time voucher, one-time payment for Pride and Prejudice. And yet, of all of her books, that is the one that's repeated the most. Emma is probably repeated the second most. And I do remember, I think it was about 20 years ago, where two female directors, one from England, one from the United States, did the most magnificent presentation of Pride and Prejudice. It was presented in a six-part series through PBS, and I think it was funded by Arts and Entertainment, if I'm not mistaken. But even to this day, if I think of Regency England, the scenes from Pride and Prejudice from that particular version come into my mind. Nothing has ever come close to capturing on film the spirit of the words that she wrote. And you can obviously tell I'm a Jane Austen fan, but the PBS just had a 4-part special on Miss Austen, the oldest sister who never married, who took care of Jane just before she died. And she was just it was a great story. She lost the love of her life. He went and I think he developed malaria in the last month of voyage that he took. So anyway, it was heartbreaking, but apparently her sole contract was to take care of her sister because Jane, I think, died in her, not sure, I know it was in her 40s. Can't remember, early, middle, or late, and everything. Okay, singing. The most incredible thing I think that I have seen was recently on the internet. The internet just brings me, whenever I turn to Facebook, which isn't often, but whenever I turn to Facebook, whatever just comes up is kind of what I follow through. And there was a little urchin on the stage, dirty hair, dirty face, dirty clothes, patched, with she was somewhere between 5 and 7, and she had one of the most magnificent voices that of of a little person that I've ever heard. And yet, so I hope that that exposure, I didn't do any follow up. I hope that that exposure, and I know, I think it was, uh, it's either has talent or America has talent. Has talent. It's either one or two of either one of those, and everything. But let's see, uh, art, drawing, too, is expression, and to this day, Picasso's picture called Guernica captured the horrors of the blitzkrieg that was levied on a small town in Spain, and prior to World War II. It kind of was a opening. They, I guess the German people wanted just to see if it could be done, and it definitely could, where they obliterated a whole town. So drawing is very, very powerful, can become a means of self-expression. There was something else that I saw once that that absolutely fascinated me, and I know I don't want to run over time, but these were all mentally challenged people or physically challenged. In one case, there was a young man who physically just never wanted to show his face because he felt he was so ugly. But they were dressed all in black, and they had tubes of fluorescent light outlining them, and they performed a play. So again, the teacher that organized that was just phenomenally gifted. Teaching, okay, so it was speaking, writing, singing, art, and teaching. So drawing and teaching were the 5 items that were related to the 5th chakra. So I am going to finish now because it's 1:29, and I do believe in finishing on time. But I do thank you for being here. Next time we do the brow chakra, the third eye, and I I never know when I start what I'm going to be presenting, but I end up giving just listening to what my guides want to bring forward. And this is, I do thank you for participating. I'm just, without your participation, there would be no point in having these lectures. So thank you all.